Okay.
Hi, welcome to Drinking with Badass Women of History. My name is Lark. Today we're going to be discussing Mum Bett and making the Boston Sidecar. Alright, so what goes in the Boston Sidecar? You need a 1/4 ounce of triple sec, 1/4 ounce of light rum, and you need some brandy. Now, I'm not a big brandy fan, but this Napoleon Emperor Dragon looks pretty bomb, so I thought I would try that one. So let's get to making this. Put that in your shaker with some ice, and you also need a lime. This looks going to be delicious. All right, get that lime. Ooh, squeeze it. Gotta get all the juice in there. Ooh. Don't get it on yourself. It really stings when it gets in your eye. All right, put that lid on your shaker. If you have a strainer, that works too. Shake that on up a couple times. Strain it out of your cup. Delicious. So now let's get talking about Mum Bett. All right. So welcome back. I brought a couple friends with me. I have Sadiq and I have Vianney. And we're drinking today to the mother of the abolitionist movement, Mum Bett. So let's talk today about who was Mum Bett, or Elizabeth Freeman. She was a slave, born in 1742. There's not a lot of records, of course, because clearly our country didn't keep a lot of records during slavery, except for prices. So, Mum Bett and her sister Lizzie were endowed into the John Ashley family when he married his wife Hannah. Not a lot is known before then, or where they came from, or what exactly was going on then. So, in learning all this and researching, I learned a little bit about white women owning slaves. You know, a lot of times that's left out, that seemed like white women were very passive, but research is showing that is actually not true.
Yeah, so especially during this time, like you said, they were endowed from his wife Hannah. White women during that time were gifted slaves throughout their lives for special events such as birthdays, anniversaries, to a point where right before they were supposed to get married or when they were adults, they would be more wealthier than the men they were getting ready to marry.
So what you're saying is slaves are worth more than property, more than land.
Definitely. There's several instances that can tell you that that's very true. And on top of it, when you would want to take out a loan, you wouldn't lease property, you would lease slaves.
Interesting. Okay. So why do you think it is that so little is known, and how did the women treat their slaves?
So I think very little is known because not many people paid attention to women. And so actually, according to the Federal Writers Project, they talked to a lot of freed slaves, and and they discovered that the mistresses were the most cruel and provided the most punishment in the household.
Interesting. So with you bringing that up, that propels us to the incident about Mum Bett and what had her leave. So Hannah, John Ashley's wife, was known to be a hot-tempered woman. John Ashley was known to be an even-tempered man. He had fought and come back from the war, and he instilled a lot of things in his household about freedom and choice. Unfortunately, that choice did not mean freeing his slaves. He was a wealthy owner in Massachusetts. But that afternoon, one day, Lizzie and Mum Bett were in the kitchen, and Hannah, for some reason, got set off. She picked up a hot kitchen shovel, and she went to go strike Lizzie. Mum Bett, seeing what was happening, jumped in front of her sister to save her from being hit, and herself was struck. So Mum Bett, leaving with this permanent scar, fled the John Ashley household and went to see Theodore Sedgwick. Theodore Sedgwick was an abolitionist. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about him?
So Theodore Sedgwick, he was an abolitionist. He was also a young attorney. He had fought in the Revolutionary War, and during that fight, he held a position as a major. In 1781, he and another gentleman by the name of Tapping Reeve formed a case They were looking for something to bring about to go against, the slavery at the time, and brought a case of Bett and Brom versus Ashley.
So it's important to understand why Mom Bett is a badass woman of history. She didn't leave because she was beaten. She didn't leave because she was scared. She left because she knew she was angry, and she knew that men were born free and equal. She had listened to the teachings of John Ashley before the Revolutionary War, before our country fought the British and won. She knew that all men were created equal. And she was so badass, she left and said, I'm taking you to court.
Yeah, so both Cedric and Taps sued Colonel Ashley for her freedom, using the cruel treatment as a reason. So they also attached another slave, Brom, to the case, and this became a test case in the abolition movement. So it was argued in front of the Court of Common Pleas.
This case is legendary because she won. And not only did she win, it took the jury only a couple of days to find them in their favor, to find in their favor. Bett and Brom were both rewarded with their freedom and 30 shillings, which is about $100 in today. The crazy thing is that John Ashley appealed this case, but then eventually he ended up dropping it and begging Mom Bett to come back as his paid servant.
Which is crazy because that woman was kept in captivity and beaten. Who would give that up and want to go work back in the same household? But the cool thing is, Mom Bett, of course, she refused, but she did go to work for the Sedgwick family. She lived there, raised her own children. She, as a paid servant, raised the Sedgwick children and their grandchildren. She lived to be about 80 years old, and she was buried in their family plot.
Which she was the only non-family member to be buried there.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
One thing is definitely clear, is that Mom Bett, Elizabeth Freeman, had no equal and no superior. And her case helped lead in the slave trade of Massachusetts, making it one of the first states to abolish it. Therefore, making her undoubtedly an angry, badass woman of history.
Absolutely. Drink to that. And one thing that I did forget to mention, when Mom Bett won her freedom, she did change her name to Elizabeth Freeman. So that's an important note that we left out, and I apologize. So a couple things we wanted to discuss was, things that I didn't know. And do you think that would have made a difference if John Ashley had not been her slave master?
No. I think that it was her location. I think since Massachusetts was the hub of the Revolutionary War, a lot of people in that time, 6 years later, were still let's...
Still progressive.
Right, we're still progressive, we're about freedom. Had she been, let's say, New York or Connecticut, I would think she would have lost.
I definitely think if she had been in the South, she would have lost her case.
If she was in the South, she wouldn't even have a case.
Well, history shows that other people came forward. Frederick Douglass, people who escaped slavery, were able to win their freedom, but no one did it like badass Mom Bett. Fun fact, Cedric actually became a U.S. Senator.
So I wonder if he was the one to start the abolitionist party or had part in that beginning.
I definitely know that he participated in it. I'm not sure if he was one of the founders. I know Taps definitely was. Taps was super involved in the abolitionist movement. There's not a lot of history that talks about Taps and Mom Bett, but I know that him and John Sedgwick worked really well together, and it both propelled their political affiliations and alignments into the government.
All right, that's cool.
Well, thank you guys for watching. If you have a badass woman of history or a cool drink you would like us to make, please drop it in the comments below. I will also put the recipe that we used. And thank you for joining. We want to see you more talking about badass women of history.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thanks.